You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show. We got the best three back together. The band is back together, baby. I can't wait to get into this show. We got two amazing co-hosts with me today and two great guests as well. I'll quickly pitch it over to the great co-hosts. First of all, Kev, the Dynasty mind himself. Kev, great to see you, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Max. I mean, I can see you wearing the Oregon Ducks colours, so pretty pleased about that. But yeah, doing really well. What a exciting time of the year we've got, and yeah, this is really starting to dive into the rookies now. So super exciting show, super exciting guests. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm dying to dive right into it. And we've also got with us today the Dynasty Grill himself, Ali Cook. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing fantastic, mate. Yeah, absolutely buzzing for this time of year, rookie season, and for our guests to be on tonight. I've been looking forward to this show for weeks, ever since I saw the show coming up. They're absolute goats in the community, so can't wait to see what they say about these incoming rookies.
Yeah, and joining us on today, we got two guests. I mean, maybe two of the three people who were definitely sure Fantasy Receipts is not. I mean, we could definitely rule these guys out. We've got Clay and Shane from the Trades in 5 team. Boys, it is great to have you both on. You can follow them all collectively at Trades in 5, along with the great Scott Connor as well. Clay, great to see you, mate. How you doing?
Hey, good to see you guys too, man. Like I said before the show, you are pleasant hosts. Thank you very much for having us again. Shane and I were on here. It was last year, I guess, right? Yeah, I think. Yeah, we were talking. Kev, you're a big ETN fan. A year ago this time. Still the case? No, we don't have to get into that. I'll pass it over to Shane, who's gonna crush this introduction. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's nice to be on with people that are nice to me for a change. A lot of yelling at me in the background that people don't see. Clay yelling at me to sit down, get ready for the show. Scott yelling at me, telling me not to talk too much. It's rough out there in the streets. That's a little behind the scenes Dynasty Trades in 5
Very
stuff.
tough life.
But why wouldn't you be in the ETN? I mean, he was the running back. I don't know off the top of my head. He was a top 5, top 6 running back in scoring last year, right? I believe he was top 3, but I could be wrong. I don't want to say it off the top of my head because I just checked the comments on the show I was on and it told me I made too many mistakes. So don't quote me at an exact figure.
You make too many mistakes. Yeah, we'll take that offline.
Yeah,
it could be worse. I told a guy was on my other show who supports Florida University, Murph, and I told him that I thought ETN's brother was a brilliant player before I realized he had transferred. So he was not pleased with me. So you could pick ETN slightly worse. So of course we are going to be nice today, Clay and Shane, as you did predict, but we might not be nice about every single player we talk about, because today we're going to go into some rookie studs that we think are going to come into the league, and then some rookie duds that we think might fall on their face. And we're going to get right into it, starting at quarterback. Where else to start with? And we're going to pitch it over to you, Clay. Tell me about your rookie stud quarterback.
Yeah, so it's funny. I was looking at the show sheet, and Shane had filled it out first. You know, that's a strategy on my end, right? You know, see what Shane does. You know, let him make the offer. I selected Jaden Daniels, and he didn't. And I was super excited. We are talking studs, right? I'm on the right thing, or am I going to talk out of it? We're talking studs. I thought Shane would have said Jaden Daniels because he's all about some crooked numbers, right? And Jaden Daniels can also transcend for people who play that one quarterback thing, right? He tends to be, the type of guy you would want. Look at his 2023 stats. It's just stupid, right? I mean, the touchdown to interception ratio, the amount of rushing yards, didn't he rush for over 1,000 yards, threw for 1 million? I mean, come on, right? Why would he not be a stud? Because he's the type of guy that we hope Anthony Richardson's going to be this year. Like, come on, talk about a monster. If it's a 4-point per passing touchdown, I don't know, man. He's the conversation. We'll see. He's obviously going to get the draft capital too. But yeah, man, I just love the value spike potential.
Yeah, I've got to say you're a smart guy, Clay.
Thank you.
I love this rookie stuck pick. I think it's I mean, if we just take away the fact that Caleb Williams was a 5-star recruit and smashed it in college, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that Jaden Daniels has higher ceiling, higher floor, just on the basis of how he plays compared to Caleb with rushing upside. I think that Caleb's a safe prospect, but I wouldn't be angry at anybody that thought about placing Daniels above him in the rankings. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that at 101 because I don't think people can pass upon Caleb just because of the name and how certain
and you don't have to take him at 101. You know, so yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
You could get him at 105 in some leagues, depending on how people feel about your Drake Mays, etc. So I think there's definitely more risk than with Caleb Williams, but it is, like you mentioned, Anthony Richardson for me, someone that I had as my QB1. I like to play a little bit with fire, a little bit of danger in there. So yeah, Jaden Daniels is someone that I'm really, I think if you just look at some of the smart film guys in the community as well, Lance Searline at NFL.com has got Caleb and Daniels very similar in their scores. So yeah, there's lots to like in his profile. There is some risk as well, but we might come on to that in a little bit. But yeah, I do love this pick.
Well, real quick,
No, okay, go ahead.
I wasn't actually asked for my stud QB. I was asked to go the other way. I noticed that after like 3 read-throughs. I'm like, wait, why don't I have the same questions as Clay? And I'm like, because in this show it'd be 3 hours.
You put
long.
him as a dud. Yeah.
Well, shh.
Oh, I kind of believe that, right?
Risk, right? The risk of. Not saying that he will be. So, I'd say he has probably the highest risk of it.
Shane, listen to me. I'm about to try to take over hosting. Yeah, I know. Mags, you were crushing it too. Good job, man. No, seriously.
Thanks, but you guys did great. I'm going to sit back and listen.
No, but Jaden Daniels. So NFL mock draft database. I haven't refreshed today, but my Commanders are very heavily, suggested to be taking him. So what would you think about him being on a Commanders? Because I'm not going to lead the witness. You guys talk first, and then I'll give my thoughts. Who wants to start? I don't care. Shane?
No, I'll go last.
Okay. All right.
Well, I would be slightly worried if he goes to the Commanders. That's mainly because Cliff Kingsbury just seems to destroy and not work very well with any decent quarterback that he comes near. I mean, let's not forget this guy had Patrick Mahomes and he went, 10th overall in the draft. You can't get Patrick Mahomes to number 1 in the draft. What is wrong with you? And then you obviously has Kyler Murray, doesn't do great with. And then he has Caleb Williams, and Caleb has his worst year in memory as well. So I mentioned it before. It's like, what is the opposite of a whisper? Is he like a quarterback shouter instead of a quarterback whisperer? Like, he just seems to ruin any guy that he comes near. But Jaden Daniels is super excited. I would have been really excited if it was still Eric Bieniemy there. I mean, obviously, I'm a Chiefs fan, though, so I'm kind of biased about that. But
me too, man.
I would have been super excited about that. What you did mention I love about Jaden Daniels is his rushing upside. If you look at the SEC for rushing yards, number 1 was Cody Schrader. Number 2 was Quinshon Judkins. Number 3 was Jaden Daniels. And this is with including negative yards for sacks. So I love his rushing upside. If he goes,
he had 10 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. He had 10 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. And I feel like the number per carry was something stupid. It was over 8. I don't think it was 9, but it was over 8.
Crazy athlete. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be worried about Cliff Kingsbury more than Jaden Daniels almost, which I think is slightly odd.
Really? Because I mean, Kingsbury's got a pretty good track record with quarterbacks. What was that guy that said that earlier? Clay. He mentioned Mahomes, coached him in college. Case Keenum, who was very good in college. No? What?
Mag said that.
He coached Patrick Mahomes and ended up getting Trubisky drafted ahead of Mahomes. How bad do you have to be to not get that out of Mahomes?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can't get that stink off. That's for
Cliff Kingsbury. Kyler Murray wasn't bad. Kyler Murray wasn't too bad under him. I'll say this: if Jaden Daniels is going to be good, I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is bad enough either way. Even if you thought he was a bad coach, he's not in that. Let's say
he's not going to ruin him. It's not going to be
as an offensive core.
Yeah.
Right realm. Right. Yeah, he will not be
Yeah.
the reason that Jaden
Right.
Daniel fails. And I actually think Kingsbury's going to do a fine job with him. But, I put him as a risk of a dud. Risk of a dud. I'm not saying he will be a dud, but I say the risk is high there just because when he takes off and runs, every highlight you see is him getting absolutely destroyed. And this is college dudes. So I do get worried that he's going to take off like one day in the NFL, get absolutely ethered. Like someone will go to tackle him and he'll just turn to dust because he's just absolutely smashed.
Yeah.
I mean, that concerns me a lot. Yes, concerns me a lot. He's only got 1 year of elite college production. He was in college for roughly, he was in college for 6 years.
Shane, just a heads up, you got a Wi-Fi thing going on.
That would have happened. I froze up.
Unless it's just me. Yeah, you're getting a little robotic. Whatever, you sound a little smarter when you're a robot.
Usual.
But no, what I was gonna say, I'll just chime in real quick. Is my take?
Am I still a robot?
You sound good for
think you're
now. I don't know if you can hear me. I started. Who bounced? Oh, Shay bounced. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, so
say anything you want now, Claire. What do you got?
Yeah, right. Dude, no, Shane is my my life coach and spirit animal. That's for sure. Although we do have a quarterly business review or a quarterly life coach review coming up soon. No, but with Jaden Daniels, if he goes to the Commanders, that's going to have a touch of a stink. And that may be a good thing to be able to get him at value in rookie drafts, but he's going to have the Commanders stink. Used to be the Redskins stink and everything else. But again, I agree with you, Mags. If Bieniemy were still there, I'd be stoked because that was one thing that was really cool about their offense last year that we don't typically see. Is they were like, Sam Howell just chucked the ball 46 times this game. Just let it rip. So I like that open style of an offense. When Cliff Kingsbury was named, it reminds me way back in the day. I was excited about these skins. It was the Redskins at the time, and they signed Mark Brunell. Old man Mark Brunell. It's a massive contract. I was like, okay, let's just be mediocre. Let's just be the 107 pick in every dynasty draft.
So I'm assuming you're talking about the upside because I was off in evil Wi-Fi timeout.
I was talking about the Commanders stink. If he goes to the Commanders, there will be some stink because, there should be.
Because you don't get the second overall pick in the NFL without being bad usually. You know what I mean? Unless you're the Chicago Bears where you're bad, but not bad enough to get the 1 overall, but you're smart enough to make a trade with someone. And that's a good lesson in your league. Just look at some of the team's 25 firsts and go, I probably want that dude or girl's 25 first because they are not particularly good. And they're not going to be good this coming year either. But I actually like that. Washington, he's the type of player Washington should take a risk on, right? It shouldn't be JJ McCarthy, who, sure, he might be 4 overall, but I'd say the ceiling is limited. I'd say the upside is limited as to what we think he could be. Now, does he have a safer floor? Probably, maybe. I don't know. Maybe in this realm, just for the sake of this conversation, sure, I'll say yes. Daniels definitely has more of the upside, and like I said, I do think he has a lot. I don't know if he has a lot, but he definitely has a risk for bust potential. But then you know what? Guess what? You're in the same boat either way. You're in this drafting for a quarterback in 2 years again, or you're a mid team where you're not even bad enough to get a quarterback, but you're just stuck in this purgatory where you can't ever really improve.
Right.
And let's
Should we
face
give
it,
them their show back here.
I just wanted to say, if he's not going to the Commanders at 2, then we hear that the Patriots, they want him at 3, and they would be happy to take him at 3. So I would personally much rather see him land on the Commanders than the Patriots. At least with the Commanders, he's got at least a few weapons there, and McLaurin, Dotson, Eckler now was someone that could really help him. But it all comes down to him. No matter where he lands, he's got to learn to protect himself, or he's not going to last more than 2 or 3 years in this league, no matter what the draft capital is. And
yeah, it's a great
it's-
spot. It's a great
Yeah.
spot because they have so much loot too. So I just feel like there's value installation with him as well. So yeah, I'd be digging. I'd love for our local boy Caleb Williams to go to Washington because he was at my competitor school, like freaking 20 years difference in time. But to Matha, I went to Bishop Ireton. We were, yeah, whatever. I would say we were competitors, but they just smashed us in the face every single year at every sport. But anyway,
Yeah, I love it. So Jaden Daniels, just love how he does seem to split the room, and it will depend on where he ends up going. Obviously, we'll get a whole new dialogue about him coming up, but I've just loved the prospect overall. And obviously, Shane, you told us that he's a potential dud here, but give me someone who you think is more of a stud. Who's your running back stud for us?
So again, I'm trying not to go so obvious because what fun would that be? But I'm going to go with Blake Corum. Blake Corum, absolute workhorse in college, even if the receiving work that you would hope that you want to see out of a running back isn't there. He's still a workhorse. There's also the fact that the Chargers are likely to draft him and give him about 45 carries a game because they don't want Justin Herbert ever throwing the football for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but whatever. It's going to be fun when him and Gus Edwards combine for the most rushing attempts in the history of football. But no, I mean, I think like he's just, I love the physical comps that I've heard. Ray Rice and I'm sorry, I wrote it on the page. I don't even remember who the other dude is, but Ray Rice. Oh, and Doug,
The muscle
Doug
hamster.
Martin.
yeah, muscle hamster.
Muscle
Dude.
hamster.
When I saw that, I was like,
Right.
nice, Shane.
Right. So those are, some of the physical comps, if not play style comps, but he is a beast. You know what I mean? Like he like smash mouth football. He's a dude that will run and carry a pile a little bit, even though he's not the hugest. I don't know if that's correct usage of the word. He's not the biggest guy that
not
you
a
ever
word.
see. Hugest should be. It's a bigly word, is what it is.
It is today.
It's a bigly word. He's he's my favorite, and like I said, not my favorite, but I just wanted to go. I didn't want to go Malik Neighbors, Marv Harrison. You know what I mean? So I wanted to go a little deeper and pick one of the running backs. I was thinking Trey Benson too, but I think Blake Corum, if he can get 200 plus carries in the NFL and we can ever get him to say 25, 30, 35 receptions, even if they're just dump offs and screens and things like that, wheel routes, I think he could be really productive in the NFL.
Yep, I definitely agree with this pick. I think the perfect spot would be for him to land it in the Chargers. I think it's something that could happen. I feel like he could be one of the first running backs drafted, if not the first one. I just think he's the most complete running back in this class. I think every single running back has got more question marks perhaps than Blake Corum. But I also think with Blake Corum, I don't think you have to take him as the RB1 when you come to the rookie drafts. I think a lot of people have marked him down just because of perhaps his combine speed score. I know what really impressed me was the reps. He benched the same amount as Joe Alt, which is unbelievable considering he's about to be drafted in the top 7 or 8 as the number 1 tackle.
I just think he's so likable too.
Yeah.
He's so likable. Yeah. The Chargers landing spot would be good in terms of value. Yes, I hope he goes there. I guess the problem is if he does, he's not going to be cheap in rookie drafts. But yeah, we're working on a likability score over here at Dynasty Trades in 5, and he would be up there. We're not. I'm conceptualizing it. We'll get there. You heard it here first. 19 minutes, 18 seconds into the fantasy wildcard trade.
After we create the actual hammer score, I'm working on that.
Oh, and a can score.
And
Yeah. I'm working on the can score too because Zamir White is the equator, the can line. But where were we?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I love Blake Corum as a stud running back. One thing with him, and it's kind of hard to be confident with players about their ability to like score touchdowns because it's so sort of flaky every year. I'm confident with Blake Corum and his ability to score touchdowns. He was so epic at finding the end zone at college. So I think he's going to come in and he's going to do that same. Although Gus Edwards, he's going to be quite confused. He's usually that guy hoovering up the touchdown. So he's going to be very, very confused when he sees old Blake taking his touchdowns away from him. That's karma heading towards Gus Edwards, I think. So love that Blake Corum is our running back stud. But we can't talk about just the studs as we know. Clay, you've got potentially controversial dud here.
Yeah. So Jonathan Brooks, right? So I will preface this for a couple of things. One, I'm a Longhorns fan, so I'm kind of diversifying against my fandom there. Two, stay in your lane, right? Am I a rookie like stud? Am I a film junkie? No. My issue with Jonathan Brooks, and Shane, you emailed it to my really old email address again, but the Destination Devia ADP. So if he's cheap enough, I'll take him because he's going to have some value installation because he's not going to play right off the bat necessarily. But that's why I also don't like him, because running back already is a week-to-week proposition. So if he's just, kind of sitting there and, his value's flat and people are trying to get him, but he's, they're offering kind of crap prices, things like that. He just doesn't seem to fit the current dynasty landscape. In terms of like, what can you do for me lately? He's not going to be on the field to do anything. So, yeah, that was my pick.
Yeah,
it's just interesting because I feel like
he's a stud though. Go ahead, Shane.
He's still the RB1 for a lot of people, despite the fact that the injury, and the expectation that he'll miss most, if not all, of camp or whatever we call it nowadays. He's still thought of super highly, at least by scouts. Lance Zierlein, Daniel Jeremiah, etc. I don't know what their actual exact rankings are on them, but everyone speaks kind of positively of him, even with the injury. So I wonder if, I mean, it feels like if you do want to buy him, you could do so after his rookie year, because it almost feels like his rookie year he'll be working his way back from injury. I don't expect him to be explosive. I don't expect him to be his full self. So Clay might be 100% on next year, and then maybe you could buy him the following year cheaper.
Yeah, and he is young. I guess I don't know the average age of running backs coming out, but he actually has my mom's birthday. He turns 21. He turns 21 July 21st. So even after maybe a kind of meh year, working him in, I don't want to even say a meh year. Again, let's just assume he's not playing the whole year. He's still young. So that's not a hindrance.
Your mom and him just share the birthday, right? Not the actual date.
Mom.
My mom is no less than 96 years older than Jonathan Brooks.
All right, just checking the math.
That's Shane math. That's Shane math. But
yes.
Yeah.
No, I really like this pick as well, Clay. I mean, first of all, it's a really flat tier at rookie running back. So I've seen a lot of people have got him at 1 with all this risk attached that he's not going to play most of his rookie season or not be at full form for most of his rookie season. So when it's a flat tier, like whoever's going as rookie running back 1 in drafts, it's potentially a dud. You're losing value within that tier. Right. I think there's a ton of risk. It got me thinking about a bit part player at Texas from last year, Roschon Johnson, that came into the league, and he had a great situation, I felt, with facing against Khalil Herbert, Donta Foreman.
Yeah, ambiguous, like you can take it kind of thing. Yeah.
So I just feel that there's a lot of risk there with if he's going to be number 1, that he's going to miss most of his season. And I think Shane made a great point. If you're in on Jonathan Brooks, don't take him as running back 1 in your rookie drafts. Take him as something that's cheaper in a year's time. I mean, in terms of player, I really like some of the ability he's got. But maybe people see the Texas and they're just thinking, Bijan. And there's a lot of love about Roschon as well. And we don't know how good he is as a player, but it just seems like Texas have got a bit of a running back factor there with, is it Cedric Baxter?
Ricky Williams back in the day, man. Let's go. Yeah, now he probably has some like edible company or something, but whatever. It's a good thing. We got some good backs.
Yeah, you got one guy that's got like the oddest surname. Is there something I just call it Blue? Like his surname is just Blue. It's just like, man, that is a stream. That's a
like
stream.
Old School, like that movie Old School, right?
My boy Blue.
Yeah, exactly. He's my boy. I'm not sure if he's in this class or the next one, but yeah, he'll be my boy at some stage anyway, I'm sure. But Jonathan Brooks, He's a real interesting one. I know Kev and you guys were saying, oh, you can maybe get him for cheaper, like 1 year down the line, but you're kind of relying on, dummies then as well. Like if you're drafting Jonathan Brooks, you have to know that he's not going to play this year, so you would be a dummy to draft him and then sell him for cheaper. Like you have to kind of find the right target. Like I know if I'm drafting Jonathan Brooks using my first round pick, I'm not selling him for anything cheaper than that because I'm sort of clued in because I listen to great shows like the Trades and Five show, so I know what I'm talking about, right? So yeah, you have to try and find the right person and try and find some more casual players who are drafting Jonathan Brooks. So yeah, it might not work all of the time, but 60% of the time it works every time.
70%.
100% of the time, right.
Yeah.
No, that's super sharp. Actually, I'll just throw this in. The whole thing, like if you're going to draft him, don't sell him cheaper after the fact. That actually makes a lot of sense. I've never heard it put like that.
I mean, here's the problem though, even with sharper people, a lot of times, even after 1 year, they're just like, all right, I'm out. Let me get the value back. And I don't think anyone's paying a first for him. I sincerely doubt that. But at that point, it just might be, oh, I like this running back that I could get in the second in the draft this year better than I like Brooks at this point. Like, even though, yes, you should probably expect some muted production from him in his rookie year.
Yeah, I guess I am about to talk out of both sides of my mouth though, because it is a slippery slope thing. What Mag said and then what I said, because oftentimes that can lead to people just holding and hoping. Right. Yeah. They're like, I got to get my first back. Like that's what I paid for it. But yes, I think a short-term move, like don't draft them if you plan on turning around and trading them away in July or whatever, a month after your rookie draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And a guy that we're going to move on to now, we're going to move on to our next stud at wide receiver is someone you're going to need a hell of a lot more than one first to get after this year. It is Malik Neighbors. Shane, talk to us a little bit about him.
Yeah, and real quick, I guess I should point out that I was all proud of myself earlier for not selecting Malik Neighbors, but that's because I wasn't paying attention. And that you asked specifically about the running back studs. Specifically, now you're asking about wide receivers, so I should be less impressed with myself actually now. But no, Malik Neighbors, I mean, when you hear people talk about him, they talk about it, and it's fairly common to hear that. I think most people think that he's got more upside than Marv Harrison. Marv Harrison is the more professional wide receiver. He's going to come in, and I bet you he gives you 1,200 yards this year. And I don't know if Malik Neighbors does that. But Malik Neighbors might be the dude that gives you 1,600 yards in a year and a half, 2 years, excuse me, because you don't play half seasons. But, 2 years down the road. His upside's just bananas. It's just absolutely bananas. Where'd I go on Draft Sharks? And it had just like fun stats. He averaged 17.6 yards per catch and led the FBS in plays of plus 20 yards with 34. Like, that's ridiculous. He's one of 23 receivers in the country to earn a 99.9 PFF grade on 20 targets downfield. He's an absolute downfield monster. He can play. Yeah, he can play out of this slot, or he can play outside. He played a little more in the slot than outside. Like he's versatile. He's just everything you want him to be. Like dude. Like you just again, not a tape grinder, obviously, but you just watch his tape and you look at him and you go, "Oh, this dude's special." Like, and I don't think when you watched Quentin Johnston last year, for example, you didn't turn on the tape and go, "Oh, this dude is special." You went, "All right, this dude does okay when it's handed to him on a platter and when the situation is perfect for him." But you watch Neighbors and it's just like, this dude's just on a different level. So I'll go with Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, again, like you smashed it out of the park tonight, lads. Such a great pick. Obvious stud. A lot of people have Marvin Harrison one, but I've got Neighbors one. I've got no issue with that. Just like you mentioned with upside, I think Harrison's safe, but Neighbors could be something different. I feel it could be that right in that top range, up with Jefferson, CD Lamb, etc. If everything pans out, he was doing it in the SEC. He's done it in offense with Brian Thomas, who's going to be potentially a first-round rookie as well, in both your real life and your rookie drafts. I mean, what's not to love? He's got a great film score on NFL.com, like I mentioned earlier, with Jaden Daniels. Ticks lots of boxes analytically. He's great for sort of the film grinders. And you're probably going to get him at a discount over Marvin Harrison. So again, thinking about your tiers, if it's them two in that top tier, and you're potentially getting Neighbours at what, maybe pick 4, maybe pick 5 again. I can't see Harrison going 4 and 5 in many, if any, drafts because of who his dad was and what he's got on his helmet. But that's for another show. So yeah, I think Neighbours, great value and an obvious stud for me.
The 103 is a lovely pick, isn't it? Because you're getting one of Neighbours, Caleb, or Marv in a super flex.
So I know
that's a good problem to have.
I sent it to the wrong email, so hopefully you have it. But yeah, Malik Neighbours at 104 in Superflex drafts right now, based off Destination Devi ADP. And just so you know, that is a lot of mock drafts. We're not talking like 5, 6, 7. Dude, that is literally like just dozens of mock drafts. It is absolutely insane how many we do. Anywho, 104 right now, it looks like you could get them. But yeah, and there's certainly cases where if there's quarterback hungry people in front of you, that you could get him at the 105. So yeah, I would say that's a discount compared to where you're generally getting Marv.
Yeah,
he's
actually my 103 in Superflex. So if I have the 103, I'm picking him ahead of Daniels and May, just because I think the way that the Dynasty community treat elite wide receivers now is so far up there that I think there's enough question marks on Daniels and May for me to go for Neighbours ahead of him. Yeah,
I think he's just an absolute stud. And no matter where he goes, you know, he's going to go to a team and he's going to be great. And you know what they say: whenever good neighbors meet, they become good friends as well. Isn't that right? That's a UK joke, I think, guys. I'm not sure. So going on from Malik Neighbours, who's a stud, to a potential rookie dud. Claire, moving on to you. You're saying this guy's not hot like the mustard. Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, again, like stay in your lane in terms of prospects and whatnot, and whether or not that is my skill set. I guess I'm still trying to find my skill set, and I just turned 40. But Keon Coleman, I feel like he's going to be the wide receiver in the draft. It's like, who's going to take him first? Who's going to take him first? And any player that has that kind of feel, you know, that kind of quote unquote stink, like we were talking about earlier, I don't want it. I don't want it because the focus this year is going to be taking players who have liquidity and are likable. I mean, yes, does Keon Coleman have like value swing potential because he's a fucking, sorry for the F word, because he's a horse. Yes, he could spike in value, but I don't want to deal with that because he could go to nothing. He could go to nothing very quickly. I don't normally curse. That's normally a Shane thing. My bad, boys.
Are you saying you'd rather have Neighbours ahead of the horse? Sorry, that's bad. That's real bad.
I like it.
Yeah, so I couldn't resist there. Ali, I think you're going to chat about Keon Coleman as well, right?
Yeah, if I have to. I think that he's exactly what Clay said. He's someone that is exactly very polarizing. Someone could really fancy him in you say your Superflex rookie drafts at say the 110. I think he can go as early as that. He could go as late as the mid-second. And I mean, if he reaches the mid-second, it's a point where I could be interested because I think there is some untapped upside there. But when I watched him, I just saw a guy that could not separate. And he was absolutely amazing with the contested catch. Like the one-handed catches is an absolute highlight reel. But I just think if he cannot separate, you know, playing with these younger corners when he gets up to the NFL, I think he's going to struggle unless he gets in the right scheme. But there is some upside there, but I think he could lose a ton of value if he struggles year one because there's already a lot of question marks and it's sort of consensus that he's hit or miss. If he misses year one, I think his value could absolutely plummet. So more likely going to be out.
Yeah, he really reminds me actually, not necessarily a exact match in the way they play, but whenever I think about George Pickens, whenever George Pickens was coming out, you're like, I'm not really sure how he wins in the NFL, but there's just that little sprinkle of like stardust or something there with Keon Coleman, the same way there was with George Pickens, where you're like, I think there may be a shot somewhere, but I just can't quite fully express it. I'm not really in on Keon Coleman either. I just don't really know how he's going to win in the NFL. Ali, you'd mentioned like his contested catches. Sure, the highlights come up well, but actually the numbers were all the way down in like the early 30s for contested catches, where You look at a guy like Rome Odunze, he's doubling that. Like, that's what you really want. There's a lot of worry with Keon Coleman, so I think he's a great pick for a potential dud for sure. And boys, we started the show with you two going head to head about Jaden Daniels, and hey, I'm just gonna spoil it for this. It's happening again because Clay, you've picked Brian Thomas Jr. as your rookie wide receiver stud, and Shane, you've picked him as your dud. So Clay, we're going to pitch at you first. Why do you think Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud?
I would say because, again, with the whole likability and how I'm drafting, and I know Shane is on board with this, Scott is as well, is just making sure if you're forced to pick on the clock, who has the potential to swing in the positive in a big fashion, right? Brian Thomas Jr. is very liked his last season. Yes, I mean, he only had one season that he can really hang his hat on, but what a nice season, right? Yeah. The market likes him. I guess he's still wide receiver 4 is kind of where he's sitting right now. I remember looking at a bunch of mocks, and again, I mean, mocks, you can't go off of them, right? But there was no consistency in terms of where he was going to go. So does landing spot have an effect on his value? Sure, it does for everyone, but I don't know. I think he's an insulated asset and clearly has upside.
Yep, totally in agreement. I think he's my consensus wide receiver 4. I think he's miles away in terms of a prospect to the top 3 wide receivers for me. But as you say, his value, I think, is insulated. I think he's going to be a lock to go in the NFL draft top 20. I've seen him go as high as mocked sort of to 15. So if he gets mocked the middle of the first round, he's going to have that insulated value. And this is a guy that was just scoring touchdowns for fun this year, 17.
17, yeah.
And this is playing opposite, obviously, Malik Neighbors, who's much better prospect in my opinion. But I think he earned them touchdowns, 17 touchdowns. And for me personally, this was controversial that I put out on Twitter, but I think his 4.3340 was more impressive than Xavier Worthy's 4.21 just because of his size, 98th percentile. His RAS score was the 10th out of over 3,000 wide receivers. There's concerns that he might just be a deep vertical threat and he can't do much else, but I've got him as wide receiver 4. Happy to take him as high as 108 in rookie drafts, Superflex rookie drafts. I think he's got that insulated value for a couple of years. So he's a stud for me.
Just as an aside, most first-round rookie wide receivers have some insulation, mostly because people are too proud to let go of their takes and admit when they're wrong. Not because they
could still suck.
Yeah, like Treylon, if he comes out there and has a Treylon Burks type year, I'm gone. You have all the insulation you want. Yeah, I appreciate that insulation because it's going to allow me to trade off of him because it means he's going to be nothing in fantasy. All that said, you did list some of the concerns about him, right? My biggest concerns are literally like he didn't have any production until this year. Literally none. Not none. He had more than none. He had a total of about 720 receiving yards in his previous 2 years. Just looking at his college target share, it's really bad. His college dominator rating, really bad. On Player Profiler, he doesn't have a breakout age, so they're still waiting for him to break out. Now, I don't know his breakout score from JJ Zachariason. I do have to look that up. So to me, he's probably the most risk. But the reason I put him as most risky is because I'm willing to take him at 4. Like I don't want him. You know what I mean? I don't want anyone else over him. So I guess that's why he's most risky to me. Like if you say Xavier Worthy, well, he's not very risky to me because I'm taking him at 201, 202, 203. Xavier Legette, again, I'm taking him in the back at AD Mitchell, end of the first round. It's Brian Thomas is a guy that you have to invest a little more in, which is why I think he's the riskiest. It's relative to cost.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think obviously we had Jaden Daniels earlier and I sided with Clay, and then we've got Brian Thomas Jr. here. I'm siding with Shane on this one, actually. I think you made a great point. I've touched upon it on the first couple of players I spoke about him being at the top of the tier. And yeah, that makes it tough for him to be a value. And I think there's a lot of risk there. That last season was fantastic, but Yeah, he's a bit of a strange prospect actually, because he's known as this deep threat guy, but his yards per out ran wasn't great. His catch percentage actually in over his college career was really high, 72% I think it was. So it's a really strange profile. Look, there's lots to like in it. I think there's the upsides there. There's potentially some untapped side to it as well, because he's been playing with neighbours. Could there be a little bit extra there if he's more of a focal point, or is it just because of neighbours being so talented that he's getting all those looks as such? But yeah, I think scoring wise, he's my wide receiver 4. But in my model, there's also like I use a colour system where if you meet certain metrics, you get like a better colour. His colours are going to be a lot more risky than his actual final number. So I think if I'm going in for Thomas, it's with the notion that it could go a number of ways. And just flipping it back to JJ Zacharias, like I said on a couple of shows ago, 2 of his comps, Terrace Marshall, Quentin Johnston.
Not great, so, Bob.
You've been burned, Kev.
I've been burned before.
I was actually just to throw in there, I was listening to the PFF show. They were ranking their wide receivers this week, and they've got Brian Thomas. Sam Monson had him ranked as his wide receiver 16 in this class. Steve Palazzolo had him ranked as wide receiver 9. And that's insane. They also mentioned about his drop rate, 10% throughout his college career, which is not a good stat either. So yeah, there's definitely concerns in the fact that you have to take him as wide receiver 4. I think we've all mentioned that, but yeah, there's a lot to like, but there is some risk there, put it that way.
PFF score in the 70s.
Yeah, he's a real like hot and cold kind of guy. Like even the fact that you could mention, he scored 17 touchdowns, the highest in all of college football last year. But what are the chances he does that again? Like, we always talk about this touchdown regression. Like it's going to be incredibly hard to keep up for Brian Thomas. But then what I would love to look into this more, and I don't know if either of you boys have got more of an insight to this, but I would love to see, is there any actual positive gain for having 2 years of great production in college versus just having that one great year at the end of your season?
Does that matter? Right.
I don't actually know. I've not looked into it to see if that genuinely does make a difference. I know I would rather it this way, where he's had his real productive year in the last year he had, compared to a Xavier Worthy, whose true productive year was his first year, and he's sort of got worse as it's gone on. So I'd rather it be this way around for Brian Thomas. But yeah, there's certainly still a lot of question marks in and around him. But yeah, anyone listen, if you got that information, I would love to get a hold of those numbers and look through it.
So I forget who. I know there was someone that used a player's last 2 years of college production, obviously, and probably added more things to it. I will say what you'd like a wide receiver to break out at an early age, right? But then continue to do stuff. Yeah. Not like a Rondell Moore, like he smashed as a rookie and then it went the other way. But yeah, if given the choice, I mean, I'd much rather, that big year of production be their last year in college and not say their first year if there's only going to be one.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about some studs, some tuds, some blend of both as well, by the sounds of it as well. So we don't know what we're going to get. Well, that's just rookie season for you. We're not really sure what we're going to get yet anyway. So we're going to move on now. We're going to have a look at what you guys think we're potentially going to get next year, because we're moving on to the fantasy wildcard selection. That is a player that you guys think is going to rise their stock the most by this time next year when it's all said and done with the season. Shane, we're going to pitch it to you first. Who's your fantasy wildcard selection for this year?
All right. So it's a guy that I haven't particularly been in on much, but I can understand the reason for the hype. George Pickens, for several reasons. If you do watch Destination Devy, listen to any of the podcasts, or you're part of the site, about Trinity Score. His Trinity Score was actually really good. He was he was 17th in the league. And Trinity Score takes a couple things into account: target share, air yard share, and yards after the catch. The Holy Trinity. Right now, his wide receiver competition is Calvin Austin III and Van Jefferson. I would be more concerned if it was Calvin Austin the first and Van Mars than what he's currently doing. So it's and obviously you would assume they're going to draft another wide receiver because, well, they kind of have to, considering those would be the other starters. One of those two gentlemen would be sharing the starting lineup with Pickens, and the improved quarterback play. Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, whomever is the starting quarterback, if it's both of them at some point during the year, they are both significantly better than Kenny Pickett. We saw what Justin Fields could do for a wide receiver such as DJ Moore, or exactly DJ Moore, when he hyper targeted him. So that could be George Pickens' role with Justin Fields, or Russ Wilson does love those moon balls, and those would be fun to watch George Pickens just over the shoulder catching, because
you can see it.
Russ can still drop those. So I'll go on a limb, not really a limb, but I'll say George Pickens. I see why people are hyping him up.
Yeah, it's a great pick actually. I've not been massively in on Pickens throughout his NFL career, because I think he got a lot of hype based on highlights.
Sure.
I just love the fact that you've come on a British show and picked a guy called George, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I think that comp between sort of Pickens and DK, that really rings true in my mind. Sort of a highlight type of player that, Metcalf's
he's got that dog in him, man. He's got that dog in him.
Metcalf's best highlight ever in fantasy is chasing down a guy on an interception. I think Pickens, you know what, his value is going to be lower because of Arthur Smith, but could he have a DK Metcalf breakout and be top 15, top 12 wide receiver this season? Not in Dynasty, but just thinking redraft. I think he could. You know, everyone's going to be down on him because of Arthur Smith, because we're unsure of who the QB is, but you made some great points, Shay. Both have got certain things for them at QB which really, really play into the Steelers. I think they'll add someone at wide receiver in the draft, but I'd be shocked if it's going to really affect Pickens that much. So there's plenty of room to grow. Like you said, his keep trade cut is wide receiver 27. I think he could have a perfect season. And actually, when you mentioned the Trinity scores, a lot of his metrics are better than you would expect for a highlight guy. So, I think this is a really smart pick.
And people want him to succeed. Yeah. He's getting people really want it. So that's even like a little hint of value insulation in and of itself. So.
And that's been for 2 years now. For 2 years, when that dude was coming out, people really wanted it to happen. After his rookie season, they really wanted it to happen. So last year, they really wanted it to happen. Like, you are right. People just like George Pickens because he does make fun plays, right? Like, he's one of those players that it's just, if he pops, it's fun. And I mean, he did improve last year if you look from a statistical standpoint. I don't know about his fantasy exactly scoring right now, but from a statistical standpoint, more receptions and more receiving yards. So he had a better year. So I mean, technically, he's doing what you want receivers to do when they come in, right? It's upward trajectory. So this could be the year that, like you said, maybe it's DK Metcalf. He's wide receiver 10 year.
And it's nice when a player has that many sell windows potentially. If they have one of those plays, a spike week, just that liquidity. With a highlight reel type of person. But anyway.
Yeah, he's definitely got that. I mean, you kind of mentioned earlier, Clay, that he's talked about maybe doing like a likability score. I feel like you can always do like an X factor score, or like that magic dust I was talking about earlier. George Pickens is right up there for that. It's hard to define exactly what it is, but he just feels like he's waiting to become a star and just hasn't quite got there yet. So this could be the year, and he could be sitting as the winner of the wild card pick come the end of the year, Shane. But that's unless Clay doesn't beat you, because he's got a pretty good one too, right, Clay?
So this is actually, so there are going to be receipts from this. We're gonna revisit these fantasy wild cards. I mean, that's fine. Like, whatever. We clearly don't care about receipts and accountability, right? So my wild card that I selected, Jaylen Warren. So for a couple of reasons. One, the eyeball test. He is a good football player. He's like 5'8", 5'9", or something like that, but he is a brick house, right? He can catch the ball. He can do this and that. he's also just the way we like to build running back rooms. He's like that perfect type. He's got guaranteed touches. He can break big plays. Yeah, he's an ideal running back if you're building the way we oftentimes do. So I'm just a fan of Jaylen Warren. Super efficient. I think he's over 6, almost 7 in terms of yards per carry. Likability score. We don't need to keep talking about that, but people like some Jaylen Warren. So yeah.
Yeah, who'd have thought we'd have two Pittsburgh Steelers as the wild card picks tonight? But I think you picked the two best players there. Certainly, when you compare Jaylen Warren to Najee Harris, who for whatever reason, just looking at Keep Trade Cut, is still ranked 4 places ahead of Jaylen Warren, is just absurd because Jaylen Warren is the guy that I'd much rather own in Dynasty. Just as you say, the eyeball test. Just he's got so much more juice. He just looks a much better running back on the field than the plodder Najee Harris. And yeah, the Arthur Smith factor. He likes his running back twos. I think Jaylen Warren's going to have plenty of a big role. He's going to have plenty of touches this year in that offense. And yeah, I think it's a great selection. And I just can't work out why he's still ranked below Najee Harris. It's crazy to me.
No.
Yeah, I think both really solid picks looking at where they are and how much room there is for them to grow. I think both you guys in with a shot of being top of that leaderboard come the end of next year for sure. And guys, that has absolutely flown by. That brings us to the end of the show. Before we go, boys, just to remind everyone, where can they find all your work online? What are you guys up to these days? Clay, I'll pitch it to you first.
Yeah, man. I mean, start with Dynasty Trades in 5 on the YouTube machine. That's our home. That's our home right there. We've also had a lot of fun over at buymeacoffee.com/trades-in-5. We used to do super chats on YouTube, but they have a ridiculous rake. So we moved over to buymeacoffee.com and we call it Buy Me a Hammer. So you can go on there, you can buy us a hammer, 2 hammers, what have you, ask a trade question, and we will answer it live on a live stream, which is cool, you know. So yeah, and then you could find us anywhere. Just Google Dynasty Trades in 5, and like Shane always says, if there's an option, I don't care if you're on Walmart.com or whatever, to enter a promo code, just try Trades in 5. Give it a shot. I mean, but yeah, no, we are very blessed. We have a small but mighty community of supporters that we love, and we genuinely would not be here without them, because trust me, the YouTube algorithm loves engagement. We've managed to build a community, and yeah, wheels up, man. It's gonna be a fire summer.
So yeah, Shane, anything to add to that? That was great from Clay. Anything to add?
I mean, honestly, yeah, if Clay's there, I'm probably there. There's a good chance of that. Vice versa. Tuesdays, Hammer streams. You can also find me doing Shane Says somewhat weekly. My first attempt at a solo podcast video.
It's awesome. Thing. It's so good.
Yeah, that's it. Same place as Clay. So just if you see Clay, I'm probably around somewhere.
Likely.
I love it. Boys, thank you again so much for jumping onto the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show. Thank you to everybody for listening. If you've not already, make sure you're checking us out over at Fantasy Wildcard over on X, and of course at Wildcard Dynasty as well. And hey, if you're on the YouTube machine, make sure you're hitting that subscribe and that like button and all of that good stuff as well. Boys, thank you once again for coming on, and thank you, listeners. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.